You're tuned to KSQM 91.5 SQM.
It's Gardening with Ciscoe. Dust off your trowels and connect your garden hoses. It's time for an hour of cultivated fun. Let's join Sassy Susan as she welcomes Ciscoe Morris.
Well, good morning, Ciscoe. How are you today?
Hey, Sassy, I am doing great. How about you?
Oh, well, we're doing okay. It's 41 degrees here in Sequim, and we had a very, very quiet Christmas. How about you?
Oh, yeah, really, really quiet. But I had a Brussels sprout quesadilla for dinner.
Wow. I wish I were at your house for dinner last night.
That's probably why we didn't have any company, you know.
Oh, Brussels sprouts, well, I mean, Brussels sprouts are full of nutrition.
Oh, they're really, but I'm probably the only person in the world that would eat one of those, but...
Oh, yeah, it was a very quiet day. We Zoomed with our family at yesterday evening, and that's what we've been doing a lot of lately. And, you know, now it's the 26th of December. I can't believe it. But 2021...
It's Boxing,
what?
Boxing Day today.
That's right. It is Boxing Day. Yes. You know, one day, hopefully, we'll be able to get back to Victoria. We can wave to Victoria from Sequim, but we haven't been there in a long... When was it? I think March is when the ferry closed down. But
yeah, and my wife's a Canadian.
Oh,
so,
is she?
Yeah. So she'd like to get back there, but we got to wait a while.
I know. Yeah. It's going to be a while. But so do you have an intro topic today that you would like to talk about?
Yeah,
and what would that be?
Oh, well, this is one that'll help anybody that has a Colorado Blue Spruce. You know, and they're so popular, but they're really not a very appropriate tree for our area. We don't get cold enough, and we get this kind of an aphid. It's a green aphid that comes in. And, you know, you see a lot of Colorado blue spruces, and they're just look horrible with only needles on the end. And that's what happens when this aphid comes. And the hard thing about it is this aphid comes around this time of year, comes in January. They only come maybe once every 5 years, so you never know if you got them. So if you've got them, then you want to get your tree sprayed, but you don't want to waste a lot of money and time having your tree sprayed every year when they only come now and then. So what you should do if you've got a Colorado Blue Spruce is go out there with, if you've got a manila file folder, or you can just use, you know, some stiff white paper, whatever you can find, and you put it inside the branches about halfway in toward the trunk on near the bottom. So you stick that manila file folder on a branch that's got branches above it, then with gloves on, because spruces are not friendly to shake hands with. You got to be careful with these things. You grab the branch above where you've got the manila file folder, and then with your free hand, with a flat hand, very gently beat the livid tweedle out of the branch that's above the manila file folder, and all these needles and things will fall on the file folder, and then you sift through it like you're a gold hunter, you know, a gold sifter. And if you see lots of little green aphids, these guys are going to do unbelievable damage to your spruce. So you're going to want to call a spray company, and or you could try and do it yourself, but I don't think I would unless it's a really little spruce. And if it were me, I would ask the spray company to use horticultural oil spray. So there's different ones, but most of them, they're actually made out of highly distilled petroleum. And the only problem is when you spray it up there, it's going to turn your blue spruce green. And I did this at Seattle U, and oh my God, the administrators freaked out. But when the new growth came in spring, it was this beautiful blue, and it made this kind of contrast that made the spruces look the best they ever did, and I took full credit for it. I had no idea any of this was going to happen. But it works real good. One spray usually is all it takes. And, if you find 2 or 3 aphids, don't worry about it yet, but monitor maybe 2 weeks later again. But if you find like 8 on that thing, that means you got a lot of them. So you want to get that thing sprayed, and it'll keep it looking beautiful. If you don't do it and you get a lot of aphids, it will look so horrible, and it takes a long time for a spruce to grow back, and then the aphids come back.
So you take a manila folder out and hold it under the branch, and then just beat the living tweedle out of the branch.
Yeah, beat the tweedle out of it. You got to whack it pretty hard.
Well, now,
and down near the bottom is the best, because the aphids start near the bottom and work their way up.
Oh, okay. Now, I was just curious. You said that the blue spruce turns green. Why is that?
It's something about the oil. When you spray it with oil, takes that glaucous coating off the needles.
Oh, okay.
And I was so shocked, because I was looking for a pretty environmentally friendly way to deal with these aphids when I directed the grounds care at Seattle University. And so I read an article that these old guys used to use oil, so I gave it a try, and it worked perfect.
Yeah.
But I about fainted when I saw the trees were all green. Oh, my God.
People thought that you had probably dug up the tree and planted something else in its place, huh?
They sure couldn't figure out what happened. They were not happy campers, let me tell you. So when that new growth came out, that startlingly beautiful blue color, I was never so happy in my whole life.
You got a reprieve.
I got a reprieve. And,
all right. Well, right now it is 8 minutes past 9, and for those people that just tuned in, you are tuned to KSQM 91.5. I'm Sassy Susan, and we have the honor and privilege of having Ciscoe Morris. He is, this is Gardening with Ciscoe, and we have some questions, but first, what?
The stumper.
Yes, I was just going to say, you need to say the stumper question, and then I'll give the phone number. What is the stumper question today?
Okay, this is going to stump the living tweedle out of everybody out there. So I hope you all call and give your idea on this. So here it is.
Okay.
What ingenious method do crows use to break hard-shelled nuts, such as walnuts? So I see crows doing this all the time, and it's amazing that crows are this smart. So what is that method crows are using to break those nuts?
Okay, so for all of you listeners out there, if you have an idea, or what you think the answer is, call 360-681-0000 or send an email to office@ksqmfm.com. I read that question to my husband this morning, and he had an idea. He thinks that the crows drop them and then they break. But we'll see what the right answer is. Ciscoe will tell us what the answer is at the end of the show, which is between 10:15, depends on the questions. We're kind of, we go with the flow here. But before we get to the questions, I did want to play, a couple of weeks ago, we had a question we talked quite a bit about hummingbirds. And so there is a man that called in, And this is going to be a surprise to you because you haven't heard this. Don't you love surprises? And it's even after Christmas. This is from Donald Clark. He called in and he had some suggestions about hummingbirds. So let's hear he's a longtime listener, so we want to make sure that he gets credit. Okay, here's Donald Clark and his suggestions about hummingbirds.
Hello, this is Donald Clark, a loyal KSQM 11-year listener with a hummingbird tip or two that I read. Number one is do not destroy spider webs around your home or garden because hummingbirds do use them to line their nests. And as a second item, I did read that they will come up to a yellow jacket or wasp nest and snag a yellow jacket or a wasp to feed their young. And item three is a matter of humor. A couple weeks ago, I saw one dive for the ground right in front of my picture window here on East Maple Street, diving for the yellow paint on the little cap on the water meter box at ground level, thinking he must have found some giant yellow flower. So enjoy, Merry Christmas, and the very best in 2021 to everyone.
Okay, wasn't that cool?
Oh, that was so cool. What was the first thing you said? Don't cut down or
Don't destroy spider webs because hummingbirds use that webbing for the interior of their nest.
That is so true. They use it, they weave it through the nest. The nest is about the size of a half walnut. They lay 2 eggs in there, and they actually weave the little nest together using spider web. So pretty cool. That was going to be one of my stumpers, but it's such a good suggestion.
Yeah.
So, hey, Donald, that was the best.
And
thanks.
And I hear the phone ringing out there, so people are already calling with ideas of what the crows do to break hard-shelled nuts. But yeah,
we should let them know now that if you get this question right, it is extremely prestigious. You get to tell all your friends that you are a recipient of the Brussels Sprout of the Week Award for being so smart.
You know, they're going to want one of those, like Miss Universe, how they have the banners that they wear across the chest. They're going to want to have one of those made.
We may have to come up with one of those.
Oh, Ciscoe, we have too much fun. Okay, well, there were a couple of questions that we didn't get to last week, so let's answer those because we just ran out of time. We were concentrating on Christmas questions and rosemary bushes and planting Christmas trees. So here is a message from Dan and Phyllis. And it says, "Hi, Ciscoe, we resolved our raccoon issue. I went online and searched raccoon issues. It led me to a site called DBZON, which had something called Raccoon Outdoor Ultrasonic Repellent. This device is a solar-powered ultrasonic animal and pest repellent that detects motion, and when it does, a light flashes and a sound goes off that only animals can hear, but they don't like it. I've attached a copy of the item from DBZON's website in case you have other people asking how to get rid of the pesky animals. For us, it worked overnight. A side note though, if they have animals, it will also deter them from coming into the area. In our book, it's a small price to pay to not have the divot dance every morning. So they came up with a solution for raccoons. I wonder if that would work for moles. Would that work for moles too?
Well, you know, WSU tested a whole lot of these ultrasonic devices to get moles to go away. And the problem is they get used to them. So they work at first. So they can be costly. And people go, wow, this is working so good. But after a while, they come back, and they've never proved to really work very well. But this I think, would work perfect because you know, it's only going to take a couple of times to scare, and the raccoons are going to go, let's go to somebody else's new sod.
Yeah.
Go wreck that. And
Well,
now, I have one suggestion for that, and I'll try and get that on my website. I forgot to put that on my website. I got an email from those guys. So what I'll do is I'll put that on my website maybe today so people can see which one they got. The other thing is, if you have pets like you and I do, Sassy, you know, we don't want to leave those sitting out in our gardens. Oh, my God, I don't know what it would do to a poor dog. But so what I would recommend is if you want to use those, once you know you're not going to let the dog out at night, you know, because we don't let our dogs go out at night because of the raccoons that do come into our garden, and I don't want my pups to get in a tangle with a raccoon for anything. So what you could do is set those up. I'm sure they're easy. You I'm sure they're battery powered, so you probably just stick them in the ground where you want them. If you wanted to, you could put them out every night after you bring your pet in, and, you know, until the raccoons get the message. And then, you know, but I'd for sure remember to take them back out in the morning before you let the pups out there. Who knows what will happen otherwise. You'll have a dog that won't go in the backyard. That would not be good.
well, interesting that you're mentioning that. We do not have any moles in the fenced-in area that we have for our dog. The moles know that they better stay away, but they're all over the rest of our yard. Oh, my gosh. You know, we have been pretty lucky. We haven't been bothered with moles, but boy, they have found a home. I don't know.
Well, I have a mole recipe on my website, and it's I call it Mint Mole Blaster. And a woman called one of my TV shows years ago and gave this recipe, and so people could find it either in my first book that I wrote, Ask Ciscoe, or they can also find it in my website, Ciscoe.com, with an E on Ciscoe. But it's 2 handfuls of mint stems and leaves, and they have to be pliable. And you stick them in a blender with a little bit of water, and then you make a slurry out of that, put it in a big soup pan, half full of water, get it to a boil and simmer for 30 minutes, and you could dilute what's in that pan to make 6 gallons of mole blaster. I have like 6 old distilled water jugs that I use for it, and I put an equal amount of the mole blaster and then just fill them up with water and shake it, and you pour it wherever the moles are working or where you see the mole hills. And moles hate mint with a passion, and most of the time they do pack up their bags and move to the neighbor's garden. So you could always try that.
Okay, well, we've got to do something because we've got little hills all over. But,
yeah, moles are terrible.
Yep, yep. Okay, so let's see. Well, this one was from last week also. This is about bamboo plants. I am currently in the process of digging up bamboo plants I inherited with the purchase of my home last year. I've removed numerous 1-inch diameter rhizomes at depths of 6 to 8 inches using a shovel. Question: when uprooting, I am snapping off smaller roots that are left in the ground. Will these small roots left in the ground continue to grow? If so, how would you recommend I eradicate them, and is this a good time to eradicate? Also, I have a 1-inch diameter rhizome that has traveled under a 2-foot wide section of concrete walkway. What eradication procedure would you recommend for eliminating the rhizomes in this situation? Your advice would be greatly appreciated. Bamboos, they can be pretty invasive, so how can we help this person? There's no name with it.
Okay, and first of all, this is a warning for everybody out there. Really think about it before you plant bamboo. Even the clumping bamboo, they keep getting bigger, you know, they just get wider and wider. But the running bamboo is way worse because it sends out rhizomes that can go for really a long way and then come up So as far as getting rid of them, I have a really good friend who just dug out, seemed like a mile of bamboo out of his garden. Oh my gosh, it was so hard work. And so, first of all, where you're digging those bigger ones out, just beat the living tweedle out of all those little roots next to them. Turn over the soil. You want to really mess them up. That's going to help. Now, here's the thing about bamboo. Bamboo will send a rhizome, and then it'll come up somewhere at the end of the rhizome. But that rhizome will not grow roots until it's been in place for 1 year.
Ooh.
Then it'll start making roots. So if he wants to sever that rhizome that's going under the walk, and then he wants to find where it came up on the other side. It's going to come up somewhere, and sever that. And if it hasn't been there for a year, that'll kill it. Even if he didn't sever it at the other side of the sidewalk, that should kill it. But just to be safe, I would dig that one out too and see. It might have roots that might have been there for a while. And then, to be honest, when you get rid of bamboo, and I've done it a number of times, somebody gave me a grass at Seattle U in a new landscape I did. It turned out that it was a bamboo, and I didn't know it. Took over this whole landscape, and we spent 8 hours. I had about 6 people working with me out there to get it all out. But, if you dig it out, you might get rid of it in one shot, but keep an eye out. You're going to see little ones come up that you missed or that come up from those little roots. You just want to dig those out the minute you see them. You have to do that for about 2 years, and then I think the whole problem will be over for good. So it's a lot of work.
Yeah, we have some bamboo in front of our house, and every now and then we see little they're poking through, and so Don will cut it off. But yes, bamboo can be very invasive. You have to be very careful. It's pretty, but it can take over.
Yeah, I remember the bamboo man, we called him. This guy lives in our neighborhood, used to. And he had bamboo, really beautiful, spectacular bamboo all over his property. He got old and couldn't garden anymore.
Oh.
And he didn't hire anybody. It was coming up in the middle of the street, right through the blacktop. I'd see cars kind of drive right over it. It was just terrible. So watch out for that stuff.
Look out for bamboo. Well, right now it's 24 minutes past 9, and for the Ciscoe Stumper Question, we need you to let us know what you think the method is that the crows use to break hard-shelled nuts such as walnuts. You can call us at 360-681-0000 or send an email to office@ksqmfm.com. And at the end of the show, we will, as people call in, we will announce what their ideas are. And then Ciscoe will give the answer. All right, so here is Paul. This guy is a gardener. He is, I don't know if I'll be able to pronounce all the plants that he describes. He calls himself a palm tree nut. Do you know any tricks to prevent Trachycarpus fortunae, windmill palm, leaf tips from yellowing during the rainy season? It seems to be a chronic issue with most windmill palms in the Puget Sound area. If it's a magnesium deficiency, can Epsom salts help? And is it true brown tips are a sign of potassium deficiency? I've never observed these problems on, how do you pronounce it? Camerops. Yeah. Mediterranean fan palm, just T. fortunae. So how can we help Paul? He wants to know, is this a magnesium deficiency or a potassium deficiency? This is beyond my realm. This is all yours.
Well, this is a tough one. because, I looked out the window this morning at my windmill palm, which these are wonderful palms that come from the high Himalayan mountains, and they grow really well in the Puget Sound. But Paul is right. When you go around and look at them, you see yellow tips on a lot of them. So you could try something like Epsom salts, because it might be a magnesium deficiency. You could fertilize with something that's higher in potash if you want to try that. That's the third number. But my feeling is that you're not going to get rid of that problem by doing these things. And I would definitely do a little research before you did that. If you overdo it or something, you could get into trouble. And the thing about these palms is that they grow pretty fast. I mean, I've planted some, my gosh, they're getting up there close to 20 feet now, and they haven't been in there that long. And and by the fact that we are magnesium deficient in the Puget Sound, so it could be that we're all suffering the same problem there and need magnesium. So Epsom salts add fat. But my feeling is, I was looking at mine. The new growth is just green. Palms only grow right out of the top. In fact, you can never cut a palm down to lower its height. If you cut the middle of that trunk, that's it. Goodbye, palm. It'll never grow from that spot. No palm will. Yeah, so I was looking at mine, and the new fronds way up on the top are just green as can be. But fronds, older fronds, they just seem to wear out fast here in the Puget Sound, and I don't know if that's true up in the Himalayan mountains or not. I've never seen them up there. But my guess is that to keep you could try these different things, but I think the key thing is to climb a ladder or get a good pole pruner and cut the old fronds off every spring. Keeps them looking really a lot better, and get those old fronds off, and then it'll stay really nice and green if you do that. The other thing I was going to recommend for them, I noticed that they're buying they just got some Trachycarpus tachyle seeds, which is Trachycarpus are the easiest palms. All Trachycarpus grow well here for the most part, and so I've never tried to grow those, so I'll be interested to see how they do. They're really rare here. But I have a Trachycarpus wagnerianus, and wagnerianus has smaller leaves. They're really beautiful, and they grow slower. And I looked at mine. It doesn't have any yellow tips at all, and it's growing right in the same area as my other one. So, except for some of the very old fronds, so that they might want to try, see if they can get some Trachycarpus wagnerianus. And I got mine from Jungle Fever Nursery down in Tacoma, so they could call there and see if he's got any. They're very rare, but they're really neat. So.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how he has 350 of these seeds, and it'll be interesting to see how they grow, how the success that he has with them.
Paul, you're going to have a new name. You're going to be the Palm Man.
Oh, he's going to be the Palm Man, Paul the Palm Man.
There's going to be palms growing in the middle of the street. I can see it already.
Well, right now it's 29 minutes to 10, and you're tuned to KSQM 91.5, which means it's time for the plant of the week. What is our plant of the week this week, Ciscoe?
Oh, I've got a really gorgeous plant of the week, and it's one that I absolutely love. So it's a camellia, and remember I said I'd show plants that feed hummingbirds in winter. So this camellia, it's a Camellia sasanqua, and they have smaller leaves. Most of the camellias we see that bloom in spring, those are Camellia japonica. They have big leaves. They have to be in the shade. This is a Camellia sasanqua, so it's dwarf, and it has much smaller dark green leaves. It likes sun. They won't bloom good if you don't put them in the sun. And this one is called Yuletide, and it has these just bright red, about 3-inch round flowers with bright yellow stamens in the middle. It is absolutely gorgeous. It blooms right at Christmas every year. And I didn't know that camellias have a lot of nectar in the flowers. And I was looking for a plant to show on a TV show one time around Christmas, and I was driving by a nursery, and I thought, hey, they might have that Camellia Yuletide. And I said, that'd be perfect to show because it'll be in bloom. It was right around Christmas. So I go in there and I ask the guy, do you have any of those Camellia Yuletides? He goes, and this is in the building. He goes, yeah, right around the corner in the building over there, you'll find about 20 of them. I go around the corner, they're all in bloom. There's like 8 hummingbirds zipping down to the flowers inside the nursery buildings. Yeah, so they love these things. They really rely on them, and they're absolutely beautiful. I have mine espaliered against the fence, so I keep it cut back flat against the fence. It looks so beautiful. You can't believe it.
Well, I'm looking at a picture of it right now on your website, and it looks gorgeous. Yeah.
It really is a gorgeous plant, and the only problem I've ever had with it, if you get a really, really cold winter, sometimes it kind of messes the foliage up, and so you got to cut all that off and everything, and then the next year it might not bloom so well as usual. And with all plants that bloom in winter or spring, you want to prune them right after the flowers fade before new growth starts. So if you wait too long, because what happens, plants like rhododendrons, camellias, they bloom, then they put out new growth, and then they set a bud on the new growth for next year. So you want to prune off the old flowers and neaten them up before they put on that new growth and set their fruit, their flowers.
Yeah.
Or you're not going to get many,
Okay. All right. Well, it is a lovely plant. I pulled it up, and we have been Ciscoe has been trying to give us ideas for plants to feed the hummingbirds so that they don't become reliant on feeders. So this is a beautiful plant. Yes, very nice, very nice.
Good one.
Okay, well, this is from Mary, and she lives on Puget Sound frontage. She has arborvitae, rhododendrons, and a hydrangea in the yard. We had a saltwater surge a few weeks ago that saturated the ground, and the shrubs, they don't look too good. Is there an antidote to the large drink of salt water that they were exposed to? I hope to hear from you even if it's bad news. What can we tell Mary?
I've had this question a few times over the years, and so how much damage a saltwater surge is going to do all depends on how well your soil drains and how long the salt water sat there over the plants. So if the surge came and went fairly quickly, that's really good. If it sat there for a couple of days, that's really bad. And the other thing is, if you have well-drained soil, so, you water and the water soaks right in, versus, you water and then you got a puddle there for a while and then it soaks in. If you have really well-drained soil, your chances of the plants making it are a lot better, because what happens, that salt gets in all those little pores in the soil and fills them up. And so what you got to hope is that the rain reaches those out of the soil. So if the rain, soaks in nice, that'll push that salt out of there. And but the bad news is, two bad news is, one is that some plants are way more susceptible to salt than others.
Yeah.
It could just really, and hydrangea is one that's well known to not like salt. I don't know about the other ones, but she's not going to know till spring.
Yeah.
In spring, she might want to if we get a dry spring for any reason, she might want to do some supplemental heavy watering to help wash that salt out.
Get rid of that
and then
salt.
It's just yep.
Yep.
If that kills a lot of her plants, what I would do is I would bring in topsoil. You can go buy it in a lot of places. Make berms and plant new plants up on berms, and they'll drain really well, even if you get a surge. So
Yeah.
they'll be up above the bad soil, and that will help a lot for next time.
Well, she'll have to keep us informed. She'll have to come springtime. We're still going to be here, Ciscoe, right? So she's going to.
Oh yeah, you betcha.
She's going to have to say, "Hey, remember me? I was the one that called in with the saltwater surge, and my plants made it, or they didn't make it." So we expect Mary to get
for us.
What?
That's a good idea.
Yeah,
I like that.
That keeps people listening. Yeah,
for sure.
We want an ongoing listener. We want a lot of people. We're going to save the world with all of your plant advice. Okay, so this is from Kim, and she has an air plant. This one's going to be helpful for me because I have an air plant that I just love.
Ah, cool.
I was given a lovely air plant and a hanging vase. How do I care for it? Someone told me they sometimes bloom. Is that true?
Yeah, it really is true. Air plants are called tillandsias, and they're little bromeliads. But the thing is, they have hardly any roots, and the roots they have, the only job they have is to cling to a tree branch or into maybe a branch union, something like that. And they grow down through Mexico, even in Florida, and then down all the way to Argentina and south. And so they're really neat little plants. You never, ever plant one in the soil. That'll kill it faster than anything on earth can. So what I do, I'm looking at one right in front of me right now. It's really beautiful, white, fuzzy one. And about every 2 weeks, you could do it every week if you want. You could just take it, I stick it in a big yogurt container and fill it full of water and shove it down and leave it in there for about an hour. Bring it out, shake the water off, let it dry really well, and then stick it back in pretty bright light. They don't need full sun. They don't want full sun, but pretty bright light. And you can mix up some fertilizer, like you could use Miracle Grow for house plants, but you want to dilute it to 1/4 strength.
Oh, okay.
And about every 2 weeks you could spray that on it, and that will tell it, hey, maybe I should bloom.
Oh.
And they get beautiful blooms. They kind of look like bromeliad ones do, kind of like a big feather or something sticking out of them. If you do luck out and get the bloom, you never want to soak the plant the way that I do normally. You want to just mist it and don't hit the plant. They don't like too much water on them, on the flower, I mean. And then when the flower dies, the original plant is going to die. Just like bromeliads, the plant that produces the flower dies, but it'll put out little baby plants around it.
Huh.
And so you can, once they get about 1/3 of the size that a mother plant was when it died, you can pull those off and just start doing the same thing with them. And I just think air plants are some of the coolest plants. One year, I got a big piece of driftwood, and I told Mary, I said, we're going to have a different kind of Christmas tree this year, So I went out and got a really cool piece of driftwood. And then I went out and spent our whole bank account on air plants. Oh, my God, they were pretty expensive. And but I wired them on with floral wire all over this driftwood.
Yeah.
Oh, it looked so great.
Yeah.
If the doggone cat we had at that time wouldn't have ripped them all off, it would have been the best Christmas tree.
Well, the air plant that I have, it's kind of small, and I have it on a piece of driftwood that someone refinished for me, and it has little pink tips on the leaves. Now, the first one I killed because I put it in water, soaked it like you did, but then I didn't turn it upside down, so the water couldn't drain out of it, and it just kind of got soft and it kind of rotted. So I have found that when I soak mine, I take it out and I tip it upside down so that the water can drain out. Is that a good idea?
I am so glad you said that, Sassy, because that's exactly what you have to do.
Yeah.
Because if that water settles down into the crown, that often will rot them. And some rot easier than others. They're all a little different. You have to kind of keep an eye on them. And so that was such a good tip. The other thing is, I put mine outside in the summertime.
Oh,
so
okay.
I have a big arbor that's over a patio where Mary and I eat dinner every night and everything, and it's got a lot of plants around it. So I put them in plants, kind of in the branch unions, and I stick some in the wisteria where it's growing up the arbor, and it looks so cool. You can't believe it. And a lot of times, just being out in that humidity and bright light, they tend to bloom more readily that way. So it's a fun thing to do with them, and it looks really cool.
Yeah. Well, it is right now 17 minutes to 10. We have gotten some input as far as the Ciscoe Stumper Question. What method do crows use to break hard-shelled nuts such as walnuts? Okay. So Robin called and said they drop them in the road and let the cars run over them. Trevor from Seattle called, and he said that birds often take nuts to a location over a hard surface such as concrete and drop them hoping to break them open. And Flo from Squim called. She said that the crows drop the nuts in the road to let the cars run over them, and then they swoop in and get them. If they have watched crows do that in front of their house for 10 years. If cars don't come along, the crows will sit there and wait for them. Crows are smart. And then this was just handed to me. This is Ruth in Seebeck. And she said, I think the crows take the nuts and put them in the street so cars drive over the nuts and break the shells. Come and get it. Love listening to Sassy and Ciscoe. I got billing next to you again.
All right.
Woohoo!
Hey, I'm just lucky I got it included in that billing. That's all I know.
Wow. So we've got some pretty good ideas. So if you think you know how the crows break hard-shelled nuts, call 360-681-0000 or send an email to office@ksqmfm.com. Well, if you're just tuning in, you're tuned to KSQM 91.5. I'm Sassy Susan, and we have the honor of having with us Ciscoe Morris, and this is the Gardening with Ciscoe show. All right, so let's see what else we can find. I am growing, this is from Sarah. I am currently growing Carolina Reaper peppers in my citrus room along with a not too happy blood orange tree. I moved them all indoors in early September before it started getting cold outside and tried to acclimate them incrementally until it just got too cold to leave the windows open. They are under 1,000-watt full-spectrum grow light 12 to 14 hours a day. Day temperature is about 80. Nighttime, I let it drop to about 72. I give it a 10-10-10 fertilizer once per month. Since it's in a pot, I don't want to overwhelm it. My pepper plant has managed to produce 2 fruit, but now that I'm trying to manually pollinate it, I can't seem to get another fruit to grow. Obviously, the bees are the pros. I'm using a super fine paintbrush on the blossoms I do get, but thus far, no more peppers. I'm not sure if my plant is done or if I'm doing something wrong. I was looking for local advice on manually pollinating and or hot pepper growing in general. Is there any other tips you have? Okay, how can we help Sarah?
Well, first of all, just so everybody knows, Carolina Reaper peppers are considered the hottest in the world.
Oh, really?
Oh my gosh, they are so hot that I'm terrified of those. Ghost peppers is about as high as I'll go. This is a million higher on the heat thing than ghost peppers. So, woo-wee! So, okay, you could grow those peppers inside. You're going to have to watch for bugs like crazy. She's got it under a good, powerful grow light. One thing I'd say is that, when you grow a plant inside that's producing fruit, you got to make sure that it's got all the elements it needs. So I would look for a fertilizer that has magnesium and calcium as minor nutrients in it. And it could be, you'll probably be able to find a soluble houseplant fertilizer. It might be an orchid food is what I'm thinking. And go ahead and keep fertilizing once a month with that. I give it full blast. You might want to go up to every 2 weeks. It's a little risky, but, once those other 2 peppers are done anyway, you got to do something. The other thing is you want a fertilizer that's high in the second number. So I want something like 5-10-5 instead of 10-10-10,
Okay.
which you're giving it now. Because phosphorus makes fruit happen. Now, if you can get it to flower more, there's a few things. So peppers and tomatoes, same family. Outside, when my peppers are blooming away, as soon as they all start to bloom, I go to the one that's upwind from the other ones, and I shake the living tweedle out of the poor fucker. And neighbors see me do this, they're like, oh, here he goes again.
Oh, here he goes, yeah.
That gets pollen flying in the air, and I would put a fan. I'd put a fan at low blast in there. That'll really help to move the pollen around and also keep the plants healthy. And then, now, if that doesn't work, that paintbrush, you're not getting enough of the pollen on there that you're putting on the pistil on the female part. So what you're going to want to do is I would use a Q-tip.
Oh,
So
okay.
get a Q-tip and really, just into the one that you're getting that pollen on. That's going to get a lot of pollen, and do the same thing on about 5 of the flowers. If that doesn't work, some people, when they do their own pollinating, use electric toothbrushes. So you could buy one of those cheap ones, and that will get a lot of pollen. Now, you got to be careful because it can kind of wipe out your plants if you overdo it. They won't have any cavities, but they won't have any flower parts either, So gently with that automatic toothbrush, see if you can get that pollen to move that way. I do that as the last resort. I try Q-tips first. A lot of experts use Q-tips to move pollen when they're hybriding plants, so worth a try.
Yeah. I like the Q-tip idea. I can see how that would get more pollen than a brush.
Yeah, it works a lot better.
Yeah.
So,
Okay, so, boy, Carolina Reaper peppers, I wouldn't care for those. I don't like really hot stuff, but...
that'd be too hot for me.
Yeah, but hopefully she'll get some more peppers from using your suggestions. Okay.
I hope so.
All right, so right now it's 8 minutes to 10. You're tuned to KSQM 91.5, and we're doing Gardening with Ciscoe. Jane wants to know, are the berries on a Pernetta? How do you say that?
Pernetia.
Pernetia shrubs poisonous. We have young children and pets and we're trying to decide whether we need to remove this shrub.
That's a hard question. So, by the way, they changed the name of Pernetia to Gultheria. If you go to the nursery and ask for a Pernetia and they don't know what you want a Gultheria. But that's all right. I don't know why they always have to change the names. But so there has been, people argue about whether the berries on Pernetia are poisonous. All other parts of the plant are, though. So if you've got a puppy or something, I think you want to remove that either way. But if you've got young kids that aren't going to eat the leaves or anything, I've eaten a Pernetia berry myself, but I only ate one, and it didn't taste any good. So I don't think kids would eat two. And I definitely had no bad effects, and I had read that they weren't poison. These are shrubs with these real pretty berries that come from like Chile and down in South America. And so my feeling is that if, it's totally, you got to be really careful on this, but if you know the kids aren't going to eat the leaves or anything, you don't have a pup that's going to go chew on leaves or wood, you might be all right. But if you do have a pup, or if your kids just might eat some leaves for fun, then I'd move that plant. They move easy, and just go stick it in another semi-sunny spot, and you don't have to worry about it anymore.
Okay. But because the leaves are poisonous. Okay.
The leaves and stems, everything.
Okay, so this is from Tim. All the needles on my much-loved and very expensive Japanese umbrella tree are turning yellow. How can I get them to green up again?
Oh, man, I feel for you, Tim. So, okay, when Japanese umbrella trees are something called a Ceadopodus vertilacida.
Oh, my.
But here's the thing. Yeah, easier to say Japanese umbrella tree.
I can see why they call it Japanese umbrella.
Yeah, me too. They're really gorgeous. They're different than any other kind of conifer there is out there, with kind of fat needles, and they should be a beautiful dark green. I have a really gorgeous one out in my front garden. It's called Cozy Joe, and it's real narrow and columnar. Most of the time they get about 8 feet wide. They can get 25 feet tall, and they should be really dark green. In my experience, most of the time when I see them turn yellow, not always, but usually if all the needles are turning yellow, they're in too much clay soil. They need fairly well-drained soil. So fertilizing it or something probably isn't going to solve that problem if you've got really clay soil. Then I think over this winter, you're going to have to take the risk of digging it up and, again, building a big berm and planting it up on top of that berm, and then it'll do great. They like full sun, and then it should be beautiful. If you want, you could do one experiment. You could fertilize it with some organic lawn food, because it could be a nitrogen deficiency. That occasionally happens. So you could try that, and if that greens it up, then okay, I just got to make sure every year I give it some of this. And I give some organic lawn food to my Japanese umbrella tree every year, and it keeps it really dark green. Makes it grow a little faster than I wish it would, because there's a lot of nitrogen in organic lawn food. The nice thing is organic fertilizers won't burn your plant, so you can feel safe using it. And so you could try that as an experiment, but I got a feeling if the whole thing's turning yellow, you got a clay problem. You're going to be digging that guy up. Sorry to tell you that.
So should he put that organic fertilizer on now?
He better wait till spring.
Okay.
So I would probably do that in, I'd say early April, maybe mid-March to early April.
Okay. But he might end up having to dig it up.
He might, and he could put that fertilizer down about the same rate as when he puts it on his lawn. So if he uses on his lawn and uses the recommended amount, he could see what that looks like and just sprinkle it around the tree like that. And he can't go wrong.
Okay, well, right now it's 2 minutes to 10. You're tuned to KSQM 91.5, and for those people that want to give their input on the Ciscoe Stumper Question, what method do crows use to break hard-shelled nuts such as walnuts? So call 360-681-0000 or send an email to office@ksqmfm.com. Well, let's go ahead and do a station ID, and then we've got 3 more questions, and that'll wipe out all the questions, and we'll be able to get the answer. So to comply with FCC, let's hear from Rick Perry. Okay, I think we're going to...
You're tuned to KSQM 91.
Are my sunshine.
No, Carly, you have to wait. That was going to be my surprise. I got carried away with my clicking here. Okay, so it's 1 minute to 10, and you're tuned to KSQM 91.5. Okay, so this is a question about sumac. This is from Fred and Diane. Several years ago, I saw this beautiful sumac tree with all of its leaves in the fall colors. Yes, they are pretty. I thought this would be great for our garden. I brought home a small root and planted it, not knowing what I was in for. As you can guess, I have a major problem. It not only has invaded all of our garden, roses, azaleas, rhododendrons, along with other shrubs, it's now coming up in our grass. I recently cut the major 3 trees down, and that hasn't stopped them from sprouting new growth. I desperately need your advice on how to rid our garden of these numerous trees that are ruining our yard. Okay, let's help Fred and Diane. The sumacs, they are pretty. They in the fall,
sumac.
They have beautiful color, but it sounds like this was Fred and Diane are realizing that this might have been the wrong choice.
Yeah, because sumacs are famous for suckering.
Yeah.
So they send, kind of like bamboo, they send out rhizomes and
Yeah.
they come up in another spot. It's interesting because years ago, Megan and I, when we were doing these tips on TV, I went to her house and I said, what are we going to do? She said, we're planting this tiger eye sumac. And they're really gorgeous. They have yellow leaves in summer, turn the most beautiful fall color you've ever seen. I have one out in a pot in front of my house. You notice that word pot. And so when we planted it on TV, I said, Megan, I can almost guarantee we'll be back here in 1 year taking this out and digging out suckers. She went, no, they said at the nursery, this one doesn't sucker. 1 year later, we were digging those suckers. We dug the big guy out. We had to get suckers out of the bushes. Now, we caught her so early that it wasn't a problem, because there were only a few suckers coming up in the garden, and we got those out. But with a problem like this person has, it's not going to work just to try and dig those all out, I don't think, because they're going to keep coming up all over the place. So I almost never recommend using herbicide, but I think in this case you're going to have to do it probably. So what you'll have to do is you could dig out, you're going to have to get rid of the mama tree. You're going to have to dig the big mamas out, and then dig out all you can. But if they keep coming up, what you could do in spring when they're actively coming up, you cut them a couple inches above the ground, and you got to paint straight Roundup on the cut.
Oh.
So, and you got to be real careful. That Roundup's going to harm anything it hits. So you just very carefully use one of those rubber paint brushes or sponges,
Mm-hmm.
Use one of those, and whatever you put the Roundup in, you want to destroy that the minute you're done using it and everything, and so you just dip it in there and paint it right after you make the cut on the part that's still in the ground, and that will kill it. And you may have to do that for a while. It'll keep putting up new ones, but eventually you will win. And I guarantee you'll never plant a sumac there again.
Yeah, they're pretty, but yeah, like you said, yours is in a pot. Okay.
Yeah.
So here's a question from Tori. I have a question about my Draconia houseplant. I know I'm not underwatering or overwatering. However, the tips of my plant get brown and then the leaf turns yellow and then it gets really bad. Does it need more nutrients? Once it turns brown tipped, the leaf is dead within 2 days. I did recently move it to a less sunny spot. Not sure if that could be the problem. If you have suggestions or helpful thoughts, I would really appreciate it. Okay, what did Tori do wrong?
Well, this is a Dracaena, and
Dracaena,
Dracaenas, yeah, and sometimes called the dragon tree.
Okay.
And you see a lot of cool ones when you go hike in Africa and things. But so these plants thrive in low light. They're one of the ones we pick for my office, because the spot where we have most of our plants in my office is pretty dark, and can't be too dark. But so I can't help but think that Tori, I think you're overwatering.
Oh.
So Dracaenas don't want too much water, and so. Also, if you put it in a darker spot, you water less often. But here's the big thing I can tell you, Tori, and that is, well, here, I'm going to add one more thing first, and that is that a lot of times the lower leaves just die out anyway and fall off. So that may be totally natural, what's going on. And so at some point when they get really tall, and there's no leaves, they get leggy, bare on the bottom, you just go ahead. If you've got like 3 stems, cut 2 of the stems down to 6 inches from the base or 4 inches from the base. Usually they'll put out 2 new ones, and they'll come out of that stem, and it'll look really beautiful. Then cut the last one down, so you can renew them that way. However, here's the biggest tip I can give you, Tori, for watering Dracaena. The leaves always just droop when they're thirsty. So the leaves, look at it after you water it, a day after you water it, the leaves will be standing straight up unless it's dying of a root rot from too much water already. And then just wait, and when you see the leaves start to droop, that's time. It wants to drink water right then and there. And if you do that, you'll never overwater that plant or underwater it. It works perfect.
Good. Okay, great advice. All right, so right now it's 6 minutes past 10, and we have our last question. So for people that are listening, if you want a question to be asked on the air next year, well, no, it will be next year.
Next year.
It will be next year. Boy, that was a Freudian slip that was correct.
Good.
Send it to office@ksqmfm.com, and we will get it on the docket. Okay, so here is a question on pruning how do you say this? Espaliade?
Yeah.
Fruit trees. I know the ideal time to prune is in the winter, but is it okay to trim during the summer when the growth of these trees is taking off? Seems like the tree's energy would be going toward this growth and not to the fruit. Now, this is from Niles. So,
Okay.
how can
All
we
right,
help
Niles.
Niles?
You need a lot of leaves because the leaves make the food that produces the fruit. So in winters, when you look at espalier trees is where they kind of tie the branches in real horizontally, and usually there's like 3 tiers. It's the best way to do fruit trees. So much easier to prune, to harvest the fruit, and you get a ton of fruit, and it looks really neat. And you can even buy pre-espaliered fruit trees if you want. So I recommend everyone go that route. But in wintertime, they put up you get a lot of water sprouts because these horizontal branches tend to really put up a lot of branches. So in winter, you thin them out, only keep the branches you want that are sticking up. They're the ones that are going to get fruit. And you cut them back if they're too tall. You could see the fruiting buds on them. They're more swollen up and chubby. You don't want to cut those off. So you thin it out, reduce the size a little. If the branches are getting too long that you've got horizontal, cut those back. In summer, you wait till about August. And what you'll see is on the wood that you kept, it'll be real woody, and then above it you'll see these new shoots that are coming out the top that are soft wood. They're way softer. They're not woody looking. You cut those three nodes above the woody part. So you could do that in August, and that helps control the height. It'll put more energy to the fruit, but you're not taking off too many leaves, so it'll still produce all the fruit at once. That's the way to do it, Nils. And if you do that, you are going to be eating such delicious apples you won't believe it.
Okay. Well, that will help him a little bit to get his tree trimmed. And now the question is, okay, so our stumper question for today, we haven't had any more input than the ones that I've already read you. What method do crows use to break hard shell nuts such as walnut? Okay, drum roll, please. What is the answer?
All right, well, a few of you got it right. Okay, so yes, they drop the nuts in the road, but that does not break them. You take a walnut, you could drop that out of a 747 flying over Seattle and it wouldn't break. So they're putting them in the road so that the cars drive over them. So some of you were so smart, and get this, they've actually been seen in heavy traffic. They'll wait for the stoplight, they'll waddle out there and stick the nut where they think the car's going to drive over it. And if the car misses it, they wait for the next light, go back out and get it, and move it to a spot where they think the tire's going to get it.
Wow. I like your when you said waddle. That is so true. That is what crows do. They waddle. You know, they just
do waddle,
yeah,
don't they?
they waddle and then they do a little hops. We have a crow in our that hangs around our house that has one white feather, so we call him Raven White Feather.
Cool.
He's kind of cool. So, yeah, some of these people did get it right. That is, Flo says for 10 years she's been watching him. I believe that this Flo is our Flo, Go With Flo, that'll be here at noon. So I think that that was her that called in. So crows are smart. Well, Ciscoe.
And some of our listeners are smart. They get the braid that they just won, the Brussels sprout award of the week.
That we'll have to get some of those banners to wear across the chest. I won the Ciscoe Stumper Question of the week. Yes. Well, it is 11 minutes past 10, and you're tuned to KSQM 91.5. Ciscoe, how about if we do this next Saturday? Are you available?
I am available, and I'll already have broken most of my New Year resolutions by then anyway.
Yeah.
So.
I don't do resolutions. I just go one day at a time. You know, I look in the mirror and I go, okay, this is what you're going to do today. And if you just go every day, before you know it, it's a habit. So anyway, well, give my best to Mary, and we will talk next Saturday.
Okay. See you next Saturday.
Bye-bye, Ciscoe.
You are my sunshine, my only sunshine. You